Hey everybody, welcome back to Stamping School. This week I'm working with an embossing folder. It is an extra thick 3D embossing folder. It's called Traditional Wreath and it's big. And I've had a few questions on how do you make a card with it when it's so big because it's 6 by 6. So I'm going to show you 4 different ideas and some tips for mailing the bigger cards, which is good this time of the year. So because it's the thick, anytime it says 3D, all right, that means it's really thick and it gives you, really nice, bold results. So when you're running it through your machine, whether you have a Big Shot or the Stampin' Up! One, you're only gonna want your platform. You wanna take the die adapter away. You never emboss with the die adapter. That's for your metal dies. If you have one of the old ones that has the hinge, then just get rid of that, okay? Just flip it over. You only need this. You don't need cutting plates at all. All you need is the platform, the folder, your paper, and then one of these 3D embossing folder plates. So this one we still sell. It's the number 4. You can buy them individually. And this just goes on top and goes through your machine. This works for the Big Shot and it works for the machine that Stampin' Up! Has. If you've been around a while, you might have one of these plates. This is the old Big Shot, like a blue see-through plate. And that is exactly the same. That will work the same through there. So, and then run them through. So the first one I did kind of got away from me. It ended up being like an hour-long card, although I think it's really pretty and I know who I'm going to give it to, but it is 6 by 6 in size. If you don't have 12 by 12 paper cardstock, then you can do what I did, and you take a 6.5 inch piece by 6 inches, score it, and then add another 6 by 6 piece on the back. So you've got your, your 6 by 6 paper. This one I embossed with gold foil and then I fussy cut. Yeah, I did it. Like I said, I'm only making one of these. I'm not gonna make more than one, but it's for someone special and they will appreciate all the extra love and time that I spent on it. And, a lot of ribbons, and fussy cut some of these little flowers from the Traditions cardstock, and then the sentiment. So that was my first one. So now the second one I did is still 6 by 6 in size, and it's on silver, and then I colored it with the blends. So you can see right here the silver foil. It works the same. Silver just happens to pop really well. Our alcohol markers work great on them. However, if you go too dark, like this one is the dark old olive, it doesn't show any squiggles, but this one, it shows the lines because you're dealing with foil, and that's Mossy Meadow. So I found that like the dark Granny Apple Green, which is a little bit brighter, works well, and so does the old olive. The dark old olive works nicely. That's what this one is. And you can just work your way around. It's pretty forgiving to just squiggle in the color. You can do Sharpies on top of this also if you have a light enough color Sharpie. Again, you don't want to go too dark because then you're going to see the silver underneath it. So let me show you this one again. This, when you cut it, is 6 by 6, and then I trimmed it down to 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, just barely cutting that off. And then I mounted that on real red cardstock. And then I've got the sentiment here from Traditional Labels. This one, which I've used a lot this year. It's been a really good set. Here, some shimmer red ribbon just looped underneath it with dimensionals. So, and then these little red dots all around here, wherever these little dots were that naturally pop out, these little berries they have, I just colored those with the red blends. You can use a red Sharpie also, but that was pretty. Now, if you're gonna, if you wanna mail a big card like this, you have a few different options. postage is what it is, and square cards always cost more to mail. A square card like this is going to be $1.27 if you put it in a square envelope. Now, I think it's worth it for special people. I wouldn't want to do it for $100, but you know, you're going to spend an extra 49 cents to get a square envelope. Otherwise, you can take a larger envelope like this one, and you can put that in here, but then you're going to want like a piece of regular cardstock to fill up this gap inside the card so it just doesn't float all over the place. So you're going to spend a little more on the cardstock and possibly the weight, or just spend $1.27 and mail a square envelope. If you don't have an envelope maker and you want to make your own envelope, since this might be the only one that you make in this size, take a piece of designer paper and cut it down to 9.5 inches by 9.5 inches. And that is going to be for a 6x6 card. You're going to turn it diagonally like this. You're going to put your card in the center, as much as you can in the center, just sort of eyeball it. And again, this is no measuring, this is no little envelope machine. This is just what I do when I'm in a pinch, okay? Go up from the center. First get it in the center. There you go. Go up on the sides, bring that in, and then bring this in like this, and then bring this down. Now at this point, you've got a couple options. If you want to, you can cut off these little corners and make it less bulky. So I'll show you. When you open it up, I know you're going to have a hard time seeing this. Let me see if I can make it better. Wherever it crisscrossed here, there's like these little triangles you can cut out if you want to make it a little bit less bulky. Let's see. I think you can't even see it. I can see it because I'm right on top of it, but it's going to be harder for you to see. When you're doing it, you will be able to see these little creases right here. And if you want to cut those out, it will make it a little bit easier to fold, which is basically what the envelope maker does. You can get that out and you can, you know, figure out what you need for that. That was a little off center on that one. But once you do that, your envelope is much more streamlined, and then you just glue that together like that to make your own envelope. And then you can just glue this down, put a cute little decorative sticker on it or something, and you're good to go. If you're going to mail something colorful like this, I would put a big white shipping label and write on it. Otherwise, you know, you can always use the other side and make the inside pretty. So I will make my own envelopes quite often for 6x6 cards. So it's, you know, people are just going to open it up anyway. So, you know, why not do something like that? This is going to cost you $1 for the designer paper, but you might have some papers that you don't want to use for cards that you don't like as much, and an envelope would be perfect. So something else I tried the designer paper, the two-tone that you can sand. It has a white core. I wasn't as fond of that. I ran it through and then I embossed it, and then I tried coloring it, and it just didn't work out that great for me. Now this card is a little bit smaller. Can you see the embossing? There it is. It's really hard to see white on white, but there it is. This one is 5.5 by 5.5 square, and then there's a layer of gold in there, which I would not recommend too many times because it's kind of wasteful underneath, although I did take a nice big piece out of it to use someplace else. So there's a little hole behind there that I'm hiding. But I cut the 6x6 embossed wreath down to 5 inches by 5 inches. So you do cut off some of the wreath, but you still, up close, you can really see the wreath detail around there. And then a little gold banner and shaded spruce die, and then one of the ephemeras that I just stuck on there. It's already pre-printed, which is nice. Now if you want to make it smaller yet and do a regular A2 size card, here's something I tried. So I embossed a 6x6 piece of the old olive, and again, hard to see, but it's there. I also tried putting a little white ink right here. That was okay. But to make the green pop a little bit, you can take your ink pad and you want to do a much lighter ink than your cardstock. So you might think I'm going to go with the old olive ink with the old olive paper, but that's going to almost look black on top of it. This is the lightest green we have. I almost called it pistachio. It's how long it's been. Soft sea foam. Very, very, you can see how very, very light ink that is. And just gently go very lightly over top all of the raised images. And you're going to see how it turns just a little bit dark, but not black. So if we had done the olive ink, it would have been overkill. And you're doing just a little kisses over the whole thing. So it goes fairly quickly. You're only hitting the highlights where the leaves are. And the good thing is if you want a little more, you can go back over it again, so you don't feel like you're going overkill. And it looks terrible on camera, but it's actually quite pretty in person. So you're just going over and hitting the highlights. You can also do this with Versamark, but I found with the Versamark there wasn't the slide with it. It just was kind of bumpy. This, let me get that clean. This is the white ink, which is a little bit more opaque. So you have to use a real light hand, but I don't mind it either. I kind of like the white too. So just other ways to kind of make it pop a little bit. So once you get done with doing what you want there, you're going to cut it right in half and then trim it down. So you get half of a wreath like this. So you see the half of the wreath. And in person, it's quite pretty. So I did a half of that so I can make 2 cards with one, and then a little strip of that decorative paper that's just sort of like a baby corrugated paper, but you can do a pretty plaid, or you could do gold, or you could do a pattern designer paper or an embossed white panel right here, and it looks really nice. And I can tell from where I am, it's a half of a wreath right here. And then I added the Peace on Earth dies just to kind of bring in, you know, some of that gold and white. And these are just the 2 punches. So that's my day of playing with the wreath. It was a little more work than I wanted it to be. So if you get it, you know, just know your cards are going to be bigger if you want to see the whole thing. I think it's a pretty embossing folder, but I also think any pattern would look great with this template too. Like we have a great plaid folder and we've got a holly folder. Anything would look great with this layout right here. Thanks for watching. If you give it a try, let me know. We'll see you next time. See it, learn it, stamp it.